It's cheaper than therapy.
Yep.
We got the biggies.
All right. We are back, ladies and gentlemen. Another
Hi.
podcast, video cast of Money, Marriage, and
Magic.
That's
Welcome.
right.
I'm Jess.
I'm Zach, and this little
We
furball.
got a furry friend with us. He
right
really
here.
wants to podcast. You can't quite see him.
That's Sunny.
But this is Sun. We call him Sunbun. He's my buds. But this is like when we're not podcasting, the cat actually like sits on these chairs all day long.
Anybody else ever thought about this or have a fat cat?
He's not fat. He's fluffy.
I think cats are all meant to be fat because
Fluffy.
when you buy a cat, you buy them and they're retired at baby. They do nothing but sit around.
I mean, a cat's
eat.
life is a pretty good life.
They get a little exercise, like like when you get older, like you might walk from upstairs to downstairs, or maybe even jog. Who knows? Maybe rush to go get the phone. We have big cats.
Big cats is an understatement, but they're loved. They're really well loved. Hey, buddy.
They're huge, huge cats.
They're huge cats.
But welcome back to another episode, you guys.
Imagine this. We're not here to talk about cats.
No, we're not. We could probably have a podcast about cats.
Yeah, we
love
could.
cats. They're everywhere.
We have 3. We would
Yes.
have more if they didn't stink so much. Anyways, what are we talking about?
Today, we're going to talk about the pressures the world puts on everybody to just have kids. Everybody out there who doesn't have kids or has kids has either gone through the pressures to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or, if you have one to have another one, or if it's out there. And we're just wondering, why?
It's a great question. So you come from a family of how many kids?
4 total. Older brother, me, younger brother, younger sister. And you?
Okay. So I come from a family of 3, technically. I'm the oldest. I have a younger sister and then a younger brother. And then my parents were foster parents as I grew up. So that's like a whole nother different level. But I mean, that just really doesn't pertain. But I think, the reason why I wanted to talk about this and touch on it is that we had our one child. We're a one and done. And the amount of people at my age of 42 that still ask us if we're only going to have one.
Yeah.
And how dare we? And what are you doing? And judging me and you is mind-boggling.
Yeah, at age 8. But here's the thing: it just becomes a normal thing to fire that off. Like it's like rinse and repeat. Someone says, "Oh my God, you have a child! Congratulations! You gonna have another one?" It's just like everybody just so. Even if you have an 8-year-old like we do, they're like, "Are you done?" I'm like, "Huh?"
Like done. He's had a vasectomy. I'm 42 years old. There is no way at this point in life I would even entertain.
But this is also
our
our choice. Like we just think after having an 8.5-year-old, I don't think it's the right time to start have another one. I don't think it would sustain a marriage.
You have freedom at that point. Like
they're
they're in elementary school. They're self-sufficient. Like she's sitting, occupying herself. We just had dinner. She's hanging out, doing her own thing. You can tell them to go brush their teeth and go do this and go do that. Like you've passed so many levels from newborn to baby to toddler to young little child to now like she's 8.5. It's incredible how self-sufficient she is, to be honest. It's sometimes like, whoa, that's crazy. But you go through all these phases of life. I mean, I wonder, I think I asked you this the other day, if we would have chosen to have a child earlier in our relationship and our life, do you think we would have had more than one?
I don't know.
Right? I mean, it's too hard. It's a loaded question. It's way too hard to ask, of course. But I mean, there's age, I think, that is deterrent on whether you have multiples.
I know the health, but there's a health reason. But as we get older, We're also getting healthier. They know more about. So, there's still that, once you hit 40, your body can't. But like, I think that's being extended a little bit, but still.
I also think it's a generational gap and things where our parents were more like, oh, you have kids and, the wife stays at home and this is what you do. You have babies, you reproduce. Like this is what you're meant to do. So
on the comparison to our parents, why hasn't the transition happened from how you have kids, you have one, well, you got to have a sibling, they got to have someone to play with, to why hasn't that stayed the same? So why has it changed from like health reasons? We know so much more.
Yeah, but women are having babies way, way older than what they used to, and having
which is good.
Successful pregnancies, like full term, super healthy babies, super healthy moms, like way later. So that part of me has fully changed. Yeah,
but nothing's changed from just the strategy or the used to world of what they say. Like, once you have two, you have two, or you have to do it 2 years apart because it's the best way to do it.
Well, we have a lot of friends that have not 2 years apart. They all had babies at the same time. There's some that have like the people who, listen, I am not judging. Please don't take this that way at all. I respect every single human for what decisions they make. But the 2 under 2 is like, I don't know how people do 2 children, still in diapers, still potentially like you got bottles and nursing and all those things. Like I know myself well enough that I know that was not in the cards for me or for us. And I respect that decision, but that has got to be a hard decision. Now, I don't know if that's a pressured decision. If it could be, this could be a little bit of a fiery topic, an accidental thing, because let's be real.
Sure.
When you have a newborn and you are tired and you don't go back on some sort of birth control, it's very easy for a new mom to get pregnant, once you get you're all clear to go ahead and, you know what I mean? Or are you like, I'm getting this over and done with and I am out? Like,
why is it still like a stigma the right word?
I don't know.
To just have one where you're shunned upon by a lot of
people,
families, not like our friends, but just like people that I know. I mean, like,
wow, this cat is literally pushing me off the chair. He's trying to get me off.
People, how could you do that to your kid? I'm like, what do you mean? I'm like, whenever someone says that, I go kind of like, I'm like, I'm selfish. Like, I have to be mentally right and happy to be able to make my child and our ecosystem of family happy. And
yeah, for sure.
I knew 1 year in just what a newborn was, how difficult and hard that was, that I'm like, no, I don't want to. And we knew what we had prior of like travel and all this stuff. So I was, we talked about it.
We did.
And then we talked about it, of course, as a whole. And we're like, no, we're good.
We just kind of played it out. And another funny thing is, and if you weren't in this situation or not, like if you want to have a vasectomy, or as a woman, you want your tubes tied or something like that, for the most part, my experience was doctors wouldn't let you. Not wouldn't let you. Maybe that's the wrong word I'm using. But they highly encourage for you to wait until your child is a certain age or you are a certain age before you make that
age is?
Decision. Like, it's just, but it's, like, and I get it. You don't want to make any rash decisions when you're still going through like, hormone change and dealing with all this like baby stuff, because it is, you guys, this cat is pushing me off the chair, but I love him so much. He's snuggling me. It's hard to make those decisions, and you don't want to make a rash decision. You know what I mean? It's very hard to reverse. You can, reverse things, but it's hard to reverse things.
It's expensive.
But I'm going to tell you what, here's the thing that really like irks me. And I was just saying this after dinner because we were talking about like our topic for the podcast and stuff. And I was like, here's the thing. And this is what has to go away. And I don't care what generation it is or who it is or how it is. After a mother or anybody has had a baby and they are taking care of this human and keeping this human alive and doing their very best and dealing with postpartum madness and dealing with their brand new life, a brand new body, a brand new feeling, a brand new human, like everything is so new. People, for the sake of all things fucking normal, stop asking women when they're going to have another one.
True.
You know what I mean?
You're already on a different planet because you don't even know what date is. You're like, you're asking me about a life decision? I'm like, I can't even answer. Like,
and
why?
You know
don't put that in my brain. Don't make me feel like I'm wrong to think about that. But again,
but everybody does it. I've caught myself doing it, and I'm like, oh my God. It's because I think you forget what that stage of life kind of was like. And then you see this new form of life and you're like, oh, okay. So it's another way of being like, well, do you like one? So do you want 2 or 3 or 4? Like you get all like hyped up for this person, but you forget the state that, especially as a woman, what she could be in. And like, that is like the worst question to ask.
Yeah. Or maybe,
in my opinion,
next time, maybe just find out about the person's day.
How's it going?
Before you hit them
Do you need a nap? Can I help you in any way?
It might make them feel bad. I mean, they may have just like got a blown out diaper fallen on their lap, and you say, "Hey, how's it going?" Oh, you gonna have another one? I'm like,
you could easily set off a mom. Like I could have.
We can make them feel bad too, because like I'm not thinking. I was up until this point good to go, but now you're making me feel kind of like, because you'll hear a lot of times, of course, with the older parents that have grown kids or are like past the big hump. Let's say 16 plus. and you'll be there with your kid and be like, well, don't you see my kids? Like how, like whatever. I'm like, do you know how many other elements are involved in not deciding, but like making a different growing up experience? Money is a big one. I mean, like, look, if there's a lot of elements, so just maybe take a deep breath before, maybe it should be said, don't bring that up unless you know for sure you can. So it's like almost like don't even ask them
Or
if they're pregnant.
they are like, it was a lovely experience. It was so nice having this child. I just can't wait to have more. Really? You would? Cool.
Yeah.
Okay, then you can like touch on that
Find
subject.
out more about the situation. So let's create a new
Just
strategy.
Like, yeah,
okay?
I really think it's important.
Don't just go full blown into asking someone in the thick of it within the 2 years if they're gonna have another kid until you catch up with them in the day. Ask them about something before you just hit them with it. Because I don't think people will ever be honest and respond and be like, you know what? That made me kind of mad because I wasn't thinking about it.
And especially like when you're a new mom too, I feel like you've got so much emotion and you're so tired and you're so exhausted and like you don't even have the energy to like if somebody did ask me that, which many people did, like strangers in a damn grocery store. Like, oh my God, she's so beautiful. You're going to have another one. I'm like, what the hell are you talking to me about? Like, this is a foreign language right now.
People do it. It's like
conversation.
It's not even that. It's like, what would you compare it to that you just say it? It's just a normal thing to say. But I don't think it should be normal. It shouldn't be normal.
It should be kicked out. Like, it's gone.
So what do you think? Okay, what do you think about this? What if you're a mom, let's say the first child, and it's just like was not a good experience. But let's say a religion kind of, you're really shunned if you don't, cause your world is like, you have kids. Like you have multiple kids. Like,
I don't think, I think that.
Do you think it happens?
Absolutely.
Or do you just like, no, it's for the, religious purposes, the greater good.
For sure. But I think that every individual person and people in a situation should be the ones to make a decision. And this could be really, really, really a touchy subject for sure. And don't get me wrong, I think religion has its place. I think that religion is good for a lot of reasons, but I don't think that that should be the deciding factor on whether you're birthing a human or not. I think your mental sanity is what should decide on whether, because if you're not fit to raise these humans in this world, what are you really doing? Like, you know what I mean?
It's kind of odd that you wouldn't have the initial choice.
It's so crazy. Child. You know what's really funny is like, even after we had Aria, my parents, of course, being parents, my mom comes from like a family of 9. My dad comes from a family of 3 boys, and they never pressured me ever to have children or us. They never like, my dad would joke around about it every now and again. Oh, you guys ever going to have kids? We're like, yeah, maybe one day. We don't know, whatever. Like if we do, we do. If we don't kind of thing. But then they'd start like, are you guys gonna have another one? I'm like, no, we told you no. Like, why do you keep asking? Like, if I were to get pregnant, I'm pretty sure you would know, but we've like told you, like, shop is closed. Like, we are done. Mm-hmm. And then our daughter is 8.5 years. How
long did I wait to have my vasectomy? 3?
It was before COVID. So
4 years?
Yeah, she was like 4 or 5. She probably was 5.
But we were already said and done, one and done before. Before we had a child, we talked so much that we're like, no, it's one. It's one. That's it. And why do you think? I think we chose one only because why? Like other families maybe we came across because we were the first of our friends to have a child.
We were, and it's kind of strange now a little bit because we have the oldest child of like the friend group and all the other ones have really young ones. And now that she's getting older, the age gap between them is different. They're the way they play together, like Aria does different things than the younger ones. Like some of them are like 2.5 and Aria's 8.5. Like that's a pretty big age gap. And like reality is like kids do hang out better with other children their age. You know what I mean?
As they get older, yeah.
But we were ready. We were like, let's give this a go. We're going to see if our bodies say yes. And if it does, great. And if it doesn't, we'll deal with that.
But if we were truly one and done, we would have got the vasectomy
Yeah, I mean, you still, even though we say it so aggressively now, when we were in the mix of it all, we definitely like sat down, weighed our options, talked about it. Like, are we sure this, like, we weren't like, yep, done, bye, gone. Like there was lots of conversation, like
so that's
tons of conversation.
Going back to like a lot of our, what we, I think thrive on and just think is the number one of any relationship, I think is just communication. So just being able to talk about it, being open about it. There's nothing wrong you can say when you're two people that have never done something before. No one knows more than each other. So it's just say it and,
It's
listen.
really funny. So I met this young gentleman at Trader Joe's. I was checking out, Trader Joe's, it's a grocery store. If you don't know what it is, they're really nice. And they ask you a lot of questions. How's your day? Blah, 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 blah. Right. And I was like, oh, he's like, what are you doing next? I'm like, oh, I'm going to pick my human up from school. And he's like, oh, yeah, you got a kid? I'm like, yeah, girl, 8.5. Oh, do you have any other kids? Nope, one and done. He's like, really? And he was probably in his 20s, And he goes, can I ask you a question? And I was like, oh my God, this kid's going to ask me if I'm going to have more. I'm like, don't you dare, you little turd, right? And he's like, what's that like? And I said, it's fantastic. I'm like, are there times when I feel not guilty is the wrong word, but are there times where sometimes I'm like, man, I wish we would have had another one because it would have been cool to see like her relationship. I grew up with brothers and sisters. He did too. Like you can't really replace that element of life. Like that is just something unique. But then some brother-sister relationships completely suck and they're not a healthy relationship. So you can't plan what that's going to look like, So sometimes I say, I'm a little bummed, but I think that she has the most fantastic life. I hope she grows up to think that way too. I think that she's got friends and close-knit family and stuff that are like siblings. And, I wouldn't regret a thing because he asked me, he's like, well, do you regret just having one? I said, absolutely not.
Well, that's what I was going to ask. What do you think he meant? Like, what is it like?
He was like, my parents are always telling me, you got to have kids. You need to find a girlfriend. And I was like, oh, I'm like, well, what's your like culture? Like, what's your background in your culture? He's like, I come from a culture where that's what my parents do. And they've been pushing me. They've been grooming me for this since I was a kid to find a wife and have babies. And I was like, well, how does that make you feel? He's like, I don't want to.
But the question is,
what he told me. I felt bad.
We're in a different era.
Like, different day and age.
Can you say it's right or wrong or good or bad that parents are still saying that to a kid? Like instilling that.
Well, I just feel bad.
You need to find someone. You need to have kids. You need to be a doctor, lawyer, whatever. I think the parents that are still saying that have not grown into the 20 whatever century we are in.
Like, I really hope, like, I know we say this now, but when Arya's like in her 20s, 30s, like if she wants to have kids, I fully support it. If she doesn't want to have kids, would I be bummed? Sure. But I fully support it. You know what I mean? Like, because it's not my decision.
But and the more and more a parent says it as a kid's, let's say 20 years old and on, I mean, it's going to eventually get into their brain and be like,
and you change your time.
I need to do this. So, I mean, if you sit back and let your child, grow, I think just being around life, they're going to know if they do or don't want to. I don't think you need to influence, but the fact that that's continuously told to a child, if you grow up, you're being so heavily influenced. You're getting an Instagram ad every other day about you should have kids. And imagine what that does to you. And eventually you go buy that thing on whatever you see on the social. I mean, and it's coming from your parent. So this is truth. This is the way the world is and what I should do. And I'm going to get my parents, more love from them if I follow what they want me to do. And I think if you're a parent doing that nowadays, I think it's switch it up. Just have a conversation.
Just support them.
About
ask them.
See where they're at. See where they're at in life of what they think about having kids. You might be like, there's no way you should have a kid right now. You don't even know A, B, and C, but parents don't even think that either. They're like,
there's a whole nother like aspect to this too. Like then there's others who are like getting older in life who
want grandkids.
Well, they want grandkids. Like they want grandkids, right? If they don't have any, there's that because like that's supposed to be one of the greatest joys in life is to have grandkids.
Again, hold on. And pause there. That's something that has been said from back in the day.
Yes.
One of the greatest joys in life is having grandkids. I wonder if that holds up. It depends who you're.
I know that like your mom loves her grandchildren.
But it depends your situation.
But then I think grandparents depends on how tight they are with the family or where they live.
Yeah.
They end up in the loop of like parenting again. And
There's
I don't know that
many categories.
I don't know that all grandparents, when you get to your depends when you become a grandparent, your 60s, your 70s, your 80s, if that's where you find fulfillment in your life, or maybe you do, maybe it invigorates you and maybe it keeps you going and maybe it pushes you. But what I was going to say is you have like the couples who are like getting older and being like, well, all my friends are having kids and like our window is closing. And then it's like, well, do we truly want to have a child because this is our destiny? Or are we doing this because everybody else is doing it? Now we're feeling left out of the club. or then there's infertility issues with people who, go that hard road of expense and pain and trials and trying. And it's like, so I know people who've done it. I know how hard it is. I know how heartbreaking it is. I've watched it happen. Like, there's just the pressure of children is like, it's wild to me.
There's so much pressure.
When it's such an individual, like if you don't have a significant other, then it's just your choice. Do you want to raise a child by yourself? Can you raise a child by yourself? Is this really what you truly want? Because it is a hard path to walk. And I admire anybody who wants to walk that path alone. Are you having a sperm donor? Are you having a surrogate? Do you have a partner who you can partner with? Did your partner leave you in the middle? Like, there's so many elements that I think it's just such a personal decision that nobody should be able to have any push or sway on it. And that I stand strong on that.
Yeah, it's weird that something that's supposed to be so life-changing, amazing feeling, the greatest time of your life. Is it though? But leading up to that element happening, we just named off how many peer pressured elements around you every day are you into having a kid?
Like, how many people do you think have a child out of solely, like, I wonder, you'd have to get honest opinions and honest data, which is probably really hard to get, but like, how many people had a child out of being pressured to have children? Now, I would say my parents, your parents, probably way more.
Well, our whole generation.
Like, I was born when my parents were 19.
But our whole generation, because that's what you do. So all these elements, I mean, so I think us growing up, our kids, I would like to just have more open communication about, instead of saying, this is what you need to do, asking, what do you think about this? And just have a conversation rather than being like, no, in order to be happy in life, you got to have a kid. And if you have a kid, you got to have two.
You won't have fulfillment. Like, I don't think that's a true statement. Now, obviously we do have a child, so we understand the fulfillment of having a child, but I don't think that you can't have fulfillment, nor can you not get it from like nieces and nephews and, other people's friends. It just really depends how involved you are in other people's lives.
You know what I would ask? Depending, if I knew the people or families, let's say the older generation, if they asked me or said like, you should have two or whatever, I'm like, you won't be fulfilled. I'm like, interesting, because I know you really well and you don't like your husband. And I would rather have fulfillment alone with my wife or significant other and live my life forever instead of hating that person because I was supposed to have fulfillment and get joy out of this one child. That's a recipe for disaster. So it's an old way of thinking. It's look, this is the era that everything was eaten out of cans.
Most are also like, if you look at statistics, people are having one or two, not three or four or five. I think it's definitely good. Changing. And I think for the planet and for the well-being of human and mankind, I think it has to change.
Plus, money's
evolution. Is evolution? Evolution's the word? Yeah, it's evolution of what's bound to happen.
And money is a big part of it. You have to be able to,
money's a huge part.
Grow a child, and you want to give them everything you can, this and that. But there's so many old ways of thinking that I think we need to reinvent. Just
rewrite the story. Like, it doesn't have to be like
what you should do, because
it's funny. I don't know if I've ever told you this, but like, we're very open. I'm very open with Aria. We go to the bathroom, the door is open, right? She knows I have a period. She's asked me what a period is. I've explained to her as best as I can what I think an 8-year-old could know. But like, listen, girls are getting their period younger and younger and younger, and it's really, really scary. But I try to be as open and honest with her so that when her day comes, she gets it and she's not freaked out, and it's not like, what the heck, I'm dying, I'm bleeding. So one day she says to me, she says, well, Mommy, I don't really want to have kids. I just want to live with you forever. So if I don't want to have kids, do I not have to have that? I said, what, a period? She said, yeah, I don't want to have kids. So can I not have that?
So she's basing not kids just off having a period, which
because I've told her, I was she's like, well, why do you have it? I said, in order for women to have a baby, you have to have this part of life. You have to menstruate, your eggs. And then I'm like, I'm like, women have their periods so that they can have babies. I don't want my period. So can I not? I don't want babies.
Yeah, I want to live with you forever.
Yeah, it was just so interesting how she associated it. Yeah. You know what I mean? And it kind of made me giggle, and it's something I'll never forget. And I'll probably repeat it to her when she gets older. When she's pregnant, I'll be like, you want to know what you told me once? Like, but it was just so interesting because like she's little, like she's never been a kid who had a baby doll, who nurtured a baby doll. She's never been that kind of kid. There's some little kids, they love dolls, they love babies,
dolls,
they love their baby brother or baby sister, or anything like that. Aria obviously doesn't have a baby brother or sister, but she still never was into like, she's not that. She's an only child. It's about her. It's not really about anybody else. It's about us as a family, but for the most part, it's about her. And I understand that and I respect it and I get it. An only child is without a doubt if you're an only child, you understand this. It's a completely different dynamic.
But it's interesting. If you're have an only child and you're a parent, a lot of kids, when I DJ, like bar mitzvahs, let's say they're 13. And I always like to chat and I get to know the clients really well. And when I meet the ones that have one kid, I always am like, how is it? But it's like, you could literally, it's a crew. You could all sit down if you all have one child and just talk about the same stuff because everybody's gone through the same stuff of just like, yeah, I got all these pressures from the outside world and friends and family. Mm-hmm. But then again, I've traveled so much in the last, whatever, because I don't have two, because it's not, all these elements. And that's
that's kind of funny that you mentioned that because we've been asked, like, Aria has traveled. We started like major traveling with her last year. We took her to Ireland. This year we're going to Europe and we've been to other places. And people are like, I've been asked more than once, why do you think she's going to remember this at her age? Like, why do you travel with her at such a young age? Don't you feel like it's like a waste? And my answer is always no, absolutely not. I think whether she remembers it or not, it will help form her. It will cause some sort of core memories in there, and it will be life-changing overall as a family and for her in like the grand scheme of things. She will retain some of it via a video or a photo.
Exactly. It's gonna
and she will have memories from it. But I said, I think a lot of that question comes from people who have multiple children because I'm not saying you can't, and this is not negative. I'm just saying it's a lot harder to travel with two than with one.
Oh yeah.
Millions of times. And I see it, like I get it. I understand it. That's why my parents only went camping with us when we were little and we didn't get to go on excursions and stuff because there's no way, like the expense, like trying to fly everybody and having to get a bigger hotel room. Like we're very blessed that this is our situation and we get to do these things with her. And, I think it's just, that is like one of the perks of having one instead of multiples.
Yeah, but that's just how it ended up for us. And
it's really funny too. I think I told you this the other day. I was talking to my mom and she was like, I know I've always asked you like if you guys are having another kid and why don't you have another kid? And she's like, I always used to think like every child needs a sibling. And she's like, I'm not gonna lie, I really didn't agree. My brother also has an only child too, which is kind of interesting. My sister has two, but my brother and I both just had one. And she's like, I really would disagree with it. Like, I didn't say that to you guys. She's like, but I just couldn't believe that like you would do that and how selfish and this and that. She's like, but the more and more I see these two girls growing up and I understand the dynamic of an only child, she's like, I think that you have to do what's right for you. And I think you both, my brother and I and us as family, she's like, you've made the right decision. And I applaud you because that pressure is a lot to have another because, that pressure, the old school pressure of, this is what's right. If you have one, you should have another. No, it doesn't have to be that way. It has to be what works for you. That's all I'm saying. Like, I'm just saying you have to sit down and look yourself in the mirror and have a hard ass questions with yourself. Like, is this what you want? Is this what you're happy with? Can you live with this? You know what I mean? And sometimes that answer does not come right away.
And it changes.
Or easy. Yeah. And you're allowed to change your mind.
It just goes back to just having open communication with whoever you're going to go through this next stage of life with. Mm-hmm. That's the most important, like you don't wait till after to be like, I did think about this, but didn't say anything. Like if you're about to raise a child, have a child, whatever it is in that category, you better, because here's the crazy thing. Once you have a child, your communication just changes too. Cause like you don't give a crap about a lot of stuff because you're either too tired or
everything
whatever.
Changes.
Everything just changes. So just make sure that door is always open and let that other person walk in.
But I thought that was really cool of my mom to like say that.
But she's,
to like see where she was coming from. change her perspective.
Because she's
And,
been
like,
in it with us.
yeah.
She's seen the progression. I don't know if anybody would be able to change her mind unless they see, and, you know, your mom, you know, stays here a lot. So
Like, your mom has never, ever once asked us ever if we're going to have another child or like
Probably
hinted to
did,
it.
but-
I don't think so, because that's not the way your mother is. She would never intrude. Like, our life is our life, and she's always respected that. Not saying that my parents don't respect it, but, you know, she has never, ever, ever asked. I'm pretty sure.
I don't know. But I think the to bring this kind of full circle is everything we talked about, and there's more than I even thought about, is there's so many old ways of thinking about having a kid. And a lot of those are all pressuring you or someone to have a child. And you're not even thinking about, like, is that going to make the parent happy in their way? So I think we need to not ditch, but reinvent the old ways of how
Maybe just
you
asking
talk.
people how, like, their mental is. Like, how are they feeling? How are they emotionally? How are they, like, how can you help somebody, especially in those first couple years? Like, they're hard. You know what I mean? And to have the question or the pressure or the balance of trying to think, like, are we going to have another one? Are we ready? Like, it just shouldn't be a weight that you have to bear on your shoulders.
Yeah.
You know?
Let's reinvent the old ways, like we've been doing with
Let's just
everything
check on
else.
people's well-being instead of asking what's to come. Let's let them, like, live in the now and deal with the now. And when they're ready to, like, develop their future or change their future, let's let them do that. You know what I mean? But in the meantime, I think, just having some, like just rock them.
Just next time you ask a
rock
question
them a
about
little bit.
a child to someone who has one or is going to have one or whatever, just think about the question you're going to ask, or even after you ask it, like, did I need to ask that? Like,
True.
But
once it's out, like, then it's out.
Yeah, but you can always re-back it up, you know, and that's like it's conversation starter. Someone said that to me. I'm like, wow, you thought about that. You care. Yeah, you gain some points in my mind. I don't know. All these things don't have to be said, and you don't have to do anything. So if you have a child, thinking about a child,
That's true.
Don't feel pressured into doing anything you don't want to.
You should never
for someone
feel
else.
pressured. Yeah.
That just sounds crazy to even say. When on earth would you do something?
But it happens like that. That's the really.
But that's what we're trying to change.
You think we can change it?
We're changing it.
One
I'm running for mayor.
One podcast at a time. We're changing it, y'all.
That's good. So yes, you guys, we're going to end it there. We appreciate everybody listening, watching. Of course, all platforms, go ahead.
Write us a review.
Sure.
Tell us what you think.
Sure.
Give us some feedback so that we know, like, help guide us. Like, we're here. We can talk your ears off. We can give you all the knowledge that we have in our tiny little brains. But, we want to interact with you. We want to know what's going on with you too. We'd have you all over if you could. We want you to have 4
kids. I'm just kidding.
Dude.
I'm just playing. So you guys, follow us across all platforms. Comment, like us, everything. You know what to do if you guys like what you see. And we'll see you guys in the next one.
Bye, guys.
See ya.
It's cheaper than therapy.
Yep.